Welcome back to Steve's Project Car Garage. My name is Steve. If you don't know me by now, this is my 1970 Triumph Spitfire Aria. And Aria used to be known as Tanker, but in the last video I told you about the whole rename. So welcome to Aria. So today I'm going to be working on pulling the engine, actually. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I'm going to try to get this engine pulled out. I have an engine stand coming from Amazon today. I have the transmission there. Pull that transmission out, but I'm pretty stoked. Once I get that pulled out, my plan is to go ahead and pressure wash the frame because I've been dying to do that for a couple of years now. And I get a good look at the frame and go from there. So stick around. It'll be a great video. All right, so I got the tub outside today. As you can see, that Raptor liner, man, that looks good. So let's talk about the frame real quick before I go too crazy. So I have the old radiator that I installed back when I first bought the car. This is one of those Champion radiators. It's one off of eBay for like 150 bucks or something like that. I've got to go ahead and drain it though. So the engine, before I had gone ahead and like adjusted the valves, and I just did a basic maintenance on the car. I rebuilt the carburetor as well, but all that's going to be coming off. Transmission, I went ahead and actually pulled the top off the transmission and I cleaned it up and I put some new gaskets in there and all that, and I put on a new tail shaft, output shaft thing. But all of that really is just kind of moot at this point because we're taking that transmission out altogether. The rear end, I got no idea on this rear end. Based upon the numbers that I have seen on the internet, this is supposed to be a 411 gearbox. I'm not sure if that actually is the case or not. That's one thing I'm kind of hoping to find out today. And so I want to go ahead and get this all pressure washed. I'm going to try to do my best to stay away from the seals as much as possible because this will be a little bit before I do get to actually rebuilding it, because this will obviously need to be rebuilt because, well, it leaks a lot. So yeah, that's kind of what the plan is for today. I know I'm doing this by myself. It should be pretty straightforward and easy. I got the crane over there. So I guess really what I need to start with is draining some fluids. So let me get cracking. All right, so this is going to be an absolutely huge mess. It's not really the best of designs, but it is what it is. You got the radiator hose here and the outputs here. And there's a frame right there, right? So yeah. Not really much of a way for me to put a good catch in there. I'm going to see if I can find maybe a funnel or something first. But this radiator's full, so we're going to have to try to get it drained out. So let's see what we can find to make this not so much of a mess. And just like that, we have an old litter box. Forgot about this guy. This should at least help to catch most of it. Maybe what I'll do is prop it up just some. At least that way it doesn't have too far to go. I really don't want to have a bunch of propylene glycol all over my floor. That's what happens. All right, so we're back. Got the radiator mostly drained. I'm sure there's still going to be some in there when I pull it out, but I went ahead and undid the 4 bolts that were hanging on. But I had to go ahead and break loose this guy, so now, barring any major issues or complications, this should just pull straight up. So let's see if that's the case. There we go. Cool. All right, let me go ahead and drain the rest of this off in my litter box. Oh, that's gross. There's some real gross stuff coming out of that. So yeah, I'll probably want to flush this before I go ahead and put it away for storage, because Ideally, I would like to be able to reuse this radiator, but I think that sitting has not been a good thing for it. Go figure. All right, so I have been spending the last bit of time trying to take all the bolts from the bell housing out and got them all out. Apparently, these are studs, and I don't remember if I forgot that or not, but this stud actually came out. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing that the stud came out. I'll have to replace it probably because this is probably all gnarled, but so that's done. I've gone ahead and disconnected the starter. So I should be able to pop that right out. So let's do that. All right. There's one starter with plate. Got the bolts here, so that'll probably be a rebuild at some point, but not today. All right, now that I have successfully ripped both of my gloves, time to start pulling out this. This is going to be the last piece of the puzzle for getting the transmission out. So these should just be 1/2-inch bolts. I should be able to just crack these loose, undo these. All right, now the transmission should, in reality, lift up and out. So funny story while I'm undoing this. When I started working on this car initially, one of the first jobs that I did was replace the motor mounts and transmission mounts. That was a fun project. I got the motor mounts done and I was really proud of myself. But then I wanted to go do the transmission mounts, and when undoing these, the bolts were seized. And I ended up breaking the transmission mount off inside of here. So I had a broken bolt inside of this tailpiece. And so in an effort to try to go ahead and pull the broken bolt out, I ended up cracking one of these lobes. And so I had to scrap this whole chunk. And I ended up finding a place called Imagination Engineering here in Orlando that happened to have one of these tail shafts in stock. And so they sold it to me for $50. I got really, really lucky there. So, yeah, now that's pretty much ready. Now the problem that I'm going to have is that if I try to pull this now, there's not going to be anything supporting the back of the engine. So let me show you. So up in the front here, you've got your motor mounts. These motor mounts are right here, okay? That's what supports this whole engine. On top of that, you also have the drive shaft, or the transmission, and the transmission supports the rest of it here. So what I need to do is go ahead and get a jack and put a jack up on the bottom of the oil pan just to kind of lift it up a little bit, and then I should be able to remove the transmission with relative ease. So let me go ahead and get that done. All right, so now the motor's supported, it should come out with relative ease. There we go. All right, so as you can see, I have the crane out. You remember the crane from the last episode where we pulled the tub off the chassis. So, hi crane. So what we're going to do next is go ahead and undo these motor mounts. So there's a couple of ways going about doing them. You can undo them from over here, which is right on the actual motor itself, versus undoing them from the frame right there. And then we get the same situation over here. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is putting the crane on, taking a little bit of weight up, and then undoing these bolts here. I believe those should be 9/16. And once I undo those, if I recall, actually, you know what? I will have to undo these as well. I have to undo all of them, I believe. I should then be able to go ahead and just lift this guy right up. I also do need to undo the fuel line right here. For some reason that is still attached. That's not a problem though. I'll get that off. So let me go ahead and get you guys set up and let's get cracking. All right. Well, after a much needed lunch and trip to Ace, I went ahead and I picked up some chain. Chain itself is rated for about 1,500 pounds. Each one of these shackles is good for 500. I think we've got this thing covered. There was a rope that we had been using previously that I just didn't have that much faith in. So I went ahead and I got the chain. It was all of 20 bucks, so not a big deal. So we got this rigged up. I think it's time to go ahead and pull an engine. So let me get you set up on the tripod and let's get cracking. Alright, so I have motor mounts loose. We should be ready to pull. I hope this goes alright. Never pulled an engine by myself before. But, I mean, it seems like it's going to be straightforward. You can't get the nut off this one because the timing chain cover's right there. But that's okay because I'm pretty sure that I actually need to remove these bolts and then it kind of comes forward and then up. So let's get some weight on the cherry picker. Make sure we're not side loading our shackles. All right, there she is in her full glory. Split, split, split. Wow. All right, so you know what's coming next. That's some full strength degreaser. I'm gonna degrease this puppy. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with a pressure washer, which is something I've wanted to do for 5 years now. So let me go ahead and get this going, and then I'll set you up for some pressure washing. Check you in a minute. Let's do this. right, so it's been a little bit. It's been maybe about an hour. I've been letting the frame dry, and while the frame's been drying, I've been just kind of cleaning up a little bit around the shop and trying to get myself hydrated because it's getting hot out there. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I am wearing shorts today, which is the first time in quite a while because, well, winter is officially over here in Florida, and we are pretty much right into summer, and it's probably about 85 degrees today. So what I want to do next is get the engine prepared for an engine stand. My engine stand's not here. It is out for delivery currently via Amazon, but I do want to go ahead and get the engine ready so I can get it mounted tonight. So let me show you what I got to do next. All right, so welcome to the rear end of a Spitfire engine. So if you're not familiar with it, this is going to be your pressure plate. This is your pressure plate for the clutch. The clutch is actually located right inside of here. And so we need to go ahead and remove the pressure plate itself and the clutch. And then once we have done that, we'll then be able to go ahead and remove the flywheel. Once we remove the flywheel, we'll get this off, and that's going to get us to a point where we'll be able to safely go ahead and mount the block or the engine to an engine stand, hopefully this afternoon. So we're going to get started with this. We're going to start by removing the pressure plate. I believe these are 1/2-inch bolts, maybe 9/16. I'll find out soon. I think they're half. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move them in a star pattern, so that way we're slowly and easily releasing the pressure, because right now this is spring-loaded and it's on there pretty tight. So if we go ahead and undo them unevenly, then we risk damaging stuff. We don't want to do that. So let's get cracking with that, and we'll go from there. All right, so one thing I forgot to mention is that right now I have the engine with some weight on the chains, but then I also have it sitting on a Harbor Freight furniture dolly, and that's going to help us out quite a bit. So one of the things you got to do is that when you're loosening these, because when you crank this, it's going to turn the engine, is you got to use something to go ahead and block the engine from spinning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use this large old flathead screwdriver, and I'm going to use one of these pegs here as just a way to kind of hold it and keep it from spinning too much. This way I should be able to go ahead and break this loose with, well, some relative ease. Okay, got one. Two. So those should now all be broken loose. I should be able to just gradually back these off. Again, keeping in a semi-star pattern to make sure that the pressure is released evenly. There we go. So this is your flywheel. This is your actual clutch disc is here. And this is your pressure plate. Now you can tell this has been sitting for a while because there's rust and everything that's built up on both of these surfaces. Which is just an unfortunate occurrence from letting a clutch sit for, a couple of years. So that's what it is, but we'll be replacing it anyways because that's the wrong clutch for the transmission that I have. So we'll be doing a new flywheel and clutch, but I'll keep this just for reference with the other transmission. So go ahead and we'll put all these back. Again, to just kind of keep everything together. All right, next is going to be removing the flywheel. I'm going to try an impact gun on this. Not sure how it'll do, but we'll see if it works. I was thinking it was 9/16, but nope. All right, let's try an impact gun on these flywheel bolts. flywheel's going to be on here nice and tight. I suspect that I'll probably need to pry it ever so slightly with my big old screwdriver here. There we go. Flywheel is off. All right. Now that I got the flywheel off, go ahead and remove this rear plate. I think what I'm going to do now is go get a soft face mallet and just tap this off. All right, so that there is the rear of the Triumph Spitfire, the engine at least. I went ahead and a long time ago, last time I had this transmission off, I replaced this rear main seal. And I'm happy to report that it looks like I did a decent job because I don't see any leak there, which is good. I do know that there was some leak down here from the oil pan, but I don't think the actual rear main seal itself was leaking after I replaced it, so that's good. Very happy with that. All right, so at this point, there's not a whole hell of a lot else for us to do until the engine stand gets here. So I think that what I'm going to do is call it time for the moment, and then clean up, and then we'll come back out once I get the engine stand. So stick around, we'll see you soon. All right, and just like that, through the magic of YouTube, it is a few hours later, and my engine stand has arrived. This is a Torin Big Red Jocks 750-pound engine stand. I got it from Amazon for just about $100, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. Let's go ahead and put it together, and then we'll get the engine put on and go from there. So I'll check in with you in just a minute. All right, well, there we have it. There's the engine stand. So one thing that I had forgot, because it has been a very long time since I've worked with an engine stand, is that you need longer bolts to be able to connect these guys up. So that means I'm going to have to make a trip to the hardware store at another point, maybe tomorrow after work. Then I have to get some longer bolts. These bolts here are only, gosh, maybe an inch long. Yeah, about an inch. And I'm going to need to have, yeah, it needs to go like that. So they're going to have to go away. So I'm going to need to get some hefty washers too. So we're going to go ahead and leave it there for the night. Not much else I can do with it. I was kind of hoping to be able to wrap the night up by having this thing sitting on the engine stand, but it is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Several days later.
All right, welcome back. It is Thursday night. It's 2 nights later. I went to Ace last night to go ahead and get bolts to go ahead and mount this guy up. Ended up buying bolts that were about 1/4 inch shorter than I needed, so I had to go back out today and finally got those bolts. So let me go ahead and show you what we got and what we're going to do. And let's get this thing mounted. All right, so these are the bolts that originally went from the bell housing into the block. And so what I ended up getting were, starting at the mount here, these guys. These are 3.5 inch long. They're 5/16 with a 24 TPI, that's threads per inch, I believe. And so these are going to go ahead and mount through here on the engine stand, and then they'll go right into the actual engine block here. And this should give us full purchase. The ones I had before that I bought yesterday did not get a full purchase, and there was about a 1/4 inch that was still possible to go in. And so I did not want to take the chance of not having enough threads in here. So I waited and I got these a little bit longer. And I got some washers because these are 3.5 inch and really waiting to 3.25. But we'll use some washers to go ahead and make up that little bit of difference. So what I'm going to try to do is mount this guy first to the back of the engine. And then once I have that mounted and I'm satisfied with it, what I'll then do is I'll use the crane to lift it up and then mount this in here and let it rip, tater, chip. So let me get started on this. I am going to have video off while I just go ahead and kind of get this mounted because I am listening for my son. He's sleeping at the moment. I just need to keep an ear out for him. But I will walk you through my process once I get this done. See you in a minute. All right, so I got this thing on here. Let me tell you, with the configuration of the bolt holes in this engine and the fact that it's so narrow, trying to get this guy on to mount was rather difficult, and it took just a lot of finagling. I mean, I tried to get it as centered as possible, but I mean, it's off. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's gonna be too bad. So what we're gonna do now is everything's tightened down. I had to use a series of washers to really kind of fill everything up, but the bolts are all tight, tightened up everything on here. So I think that what we're going to do now is go ahead and hook it up to the crane, go ahead and lift it up in the air and see about mating the two. So let me get you set up and let's see what happens. All right, so right now it is mounted. The weight is on the actual stand, but it's got quite the tilt to it. I know it's got to be because of the way that I have that mount done. So I'm going to try to adjust it. I'm going to lift the weight up off of it and see if I can try to square it up a little bit more. So I will check back in with you in a minute. All right, so did a little more adjusting, and it's not perfectly straight up and down, but it's definitely a lot better than it was before, which is definitely a good place to be. So let me go ahead and release the lift because it's still kind of hanging on it, and let's just see how it settles. All right, well, there it is. Engine's mounted. Not bad at all. It's still a little crooked, but I don't frankly think I'm going to get it any better. It's just a weird bolt pattern. Unlike a, Chevy 350 or something like that, where your bell housing bolts are pretty symmetrical, this is very asymmetrical. And so, unless I were to put the plate on the back, which in my opinion probably would not be nearly as strong, this is about as good as I'm going to get. So, there we have it. Let's go ahead and get wrapped up, and we'll close up this. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching the video. I don't know how much we're going to get done on Aria in the next couple of weeks. I have another project I got to work on. Right now, my daily driver, my Volkswagen Jetta, needs a new clutch. So I'll be working on that with my buddy Chris over the next couple of weekends, trying to get that transmission pulled out, clutch replaced. So Aria is going to take a back seat for a few weeks while I get that done. But when I do get back to Aria, I think that the plan is to go ahead and work on the frame, get the frame stripped down, start building a parts list, get some stuff ordered. So that way we can get the frame cleaned up, painted, and starting to put back together. And then, well, we'll just keep going. So if you haven't done so already, please make sure that you hit that like button, hit the subscribe, click the bell to get those post notifications. And remember, when working on old hunks of metal like this and the old project cars, don't be that dreaded previous owner. Cheers.